Alright, hello and welcome everyone. So we are finally able to talk about Soulframe. Soulframe's NDA has been lifted. I've streamed about like 15 to 20 hours of it or so, and I want to talk about like what my impressions are of it and kind of what the systems at play here are. With that, over on Brozime.com, I am going to have kind of a page of general tips and some just general learnings from this that you can go check out. If you do have access to the alpha, which I'm, always curious on feedback for if anyone is also playing and has some more information that I don't yet. Like I said, only 15 to 20 hours of gameplay so far, but it of course is also an alpha, so just having that much is kind of impressive. With that, this is Soulframe. It's, we're in the open world right now, but we're going to check out some of the systems inside of the kind of Mind Palace that you guys have most assuredly seen before. In terms of what I have done, I've done pretty much all of the stuff that we've seen previews for. So I got access to the blacksmith, and then I got access to like the ability, the very basic ability of dying, which is just like some randomized colors. And then also the kind of codex / map completion or cartography guy. And then of course weapon upgrades and such. And I want to talk a little bit about like how gear works, as it's the same but also very different to what we've experienced in Warframe prior. So first and foremost, they start you off by just picking virtues and picking a weapon associated with that stuff. For this, you have courage, virtue, and grace, and basically all of the packs, which are like the classes and weapons, will kind of lean towards one of these. With that, whether or not they lean towards one thing or another, you can just edit the points that you've put in and kind of move stuff around as needed in order to use certain gear. Like for example, the pact I'm on currently is like courage focused, and I'm using a courage weapon with it, so I have a much higher stat of that. But like you can kind of move things around as needed. If I needed more grace, I could take my points that I'm able to spend wherever and put that towards grace if I needed to. And you can kind of just move around wherever. Right now, I will say it is kind of odd. And like these stats don't seem to do a whole lot right now or be super different from one another. They just seem to be different stats for the sake of it. But again, it is alpha, so it's very early. And with this, as I said, those weapons kind of inform, or these virtues kind of inform the different weapons. So if we look on like Ignimora, this is like attuned for courage and has like a required courage amount for it. And like the starter sword is a spirit sword, and then this is a grace weapon for like the dual daggers, and then this dual daggers is a spirit weapon though, and like the bow is a spirit weapon, and it'll kind of like be different depending on what weapons you grab access to. I think the sword and shield that I'm currently building are going to end up being a grace weapon, which I think is my second grace weapon. But these weapons are interesting because, as you can see, I've leveled the longsword, or the base longsword, and I'm leveling this longsword as well. These are different rarities. So this is the common rarity, it's the starter, and this is an uncommon rarity for your longswords. And that has a number of different effects. So without even getting any of the classes and stuff, we'll talk to Fen here. And this is where you apply motes. So outside of just the uncommon weapon being strictly better just on a damage basis once it's leveled, it also gets more access to motes. Because if we look at the starter sword, I have one slot that I do get, but the other two slots are not available for common weapons. So you won't even get access to more of what is essentially your modding slots, kind of. Until you have like better weapons. So it kind of slowly leans you into that stuff. And speaking of slowly leaning into that stuff, you'll notice I only have one equipped, which has like a very basic, just like +3 attack damage effect. So this system seems really, really early, but weapons seem to have a pretty raw progression to them. Like the Solos is the beginner sword, and then the Ignimora is a step beyond that. And ostensibly there will be, steps and steps further beyond that. So weapons have a kind of hardline progression. Counterbalancing that, which I found interesting, is that there are combat arts. So combat arts are essentially points that you get for having leveled a weapon of a certain type. So because I have fully leveled the basic long blade, I got 5 points of my long blade points. With Igne, I've got 4 of the 5 points for it. And that has let me level this tree. This tree is a bunch of like actual functionality things. Like perfect throw allows me to do like perfect timing throws of my weapon. Get more damage. Riposte lets me parry and then have a special attack come out of it. Headlong gives me like faster heavy attacks. This makes it so my heavy attacks do more stagger. Gives me more like parry frames on my parries, and like I can parry heavy attacks, and all kinds of different things are in here. This like seems like it'll be like greatly expanded later. But like there's also like better versions of skills in here. Specifically, Vaunt has like 2 extra levels of getting like that smite chance whenever you do riposte, and it's all like an interesting progression that's kind of on the same line as like a mastery like it's like a mastery rank, but for individual types of weapons, and then that's coupled with like your overall rank that you're getting for like leveling all kinds of different things. That's giving you more of those virtue points that we talked about. So you're kind of getting permanent progression no matter what type of thing you're leveling. So everything feels pretty worthwhile to use. Speaking of that, we have the different packs. So the packs work pretty interestingly. The 2 packs that are the starter ones are fairly different from one another. And then there's a third pack that I'm currently building and don't have access to yet. These are your classes. So as I said before, they lean towards certain like virtues and they have stats associated with them. And you can like kind of see in here that they also have like total stat trees. So like Pact of the Tempest, which I've been leveling more recently, I have 3 points that I can spend in here. Which I would probably, let's spend it on Idolize, let's say. And like you can spend these points as you would throughout like the skill tree, getting different effects and things. This lets you like build meter more effectively, which we'll get into in a second. But there's tons of different abilities in here and just some stat upgrades and things that you can spec into, and you can respec at will as well. With that, how the Pact actually functions is that they have 3 abilities. So I have Sizemore, Astrosphere, and then Atmosphere. And then with those 3 abilities, they also have kind of like a built-in weapon. In the Ode's case, this has like a Tesla coil that you can like chain lightning enemies in an area in front of you that's like buffed up by the sphere and such like that. Actually, most things in this are buffed by the sphere. Where you can just like zap enemies, and then counter to that, you have the Fae arm, which is Beastone, Phantom Flock, and Glamour, which I'll show all of these. But this has like a big exalted bow, essentially, that does like huge damage, especially to bosses. And this is the one that I've gravitated towards a little bit. As you can see, it's maxed out. I think it's a little bit better. We're going to use this one to start us off here, though. And they've been pretty interesting. They're pretty different from one another. I would say this one is more defensive, and the other is more kind of like assassin-y offensive. But they've been pretty neat. In terms of other stuff in this menu, this is also where you can change your actual like gear outside of your weapon. So like different like leg pieces and such like that can be equipped here. None of the armors do anything. They're all just cosmetic, at least for now. There is like a joinery piece that's a part of crafting that I'll show in a moment. That is a thing you can put in these, but they don't do anything right now. So maybe armors will have stats in the future. Personally, I'm kind of hoping that they don't have stats in the future, because just being able to choose whatever looks cool appeals to me personally. And just having stats be like, somewhere else, like, on your weapons or whatnot, I would definitely prefer. But that's like what's going on in terms of like your equipment. Also, the packs also have 3 slots for those emotes that I mentioned. With that, other things that are familiar, the blacksmith is very, very much a Warframe Foundry. You can see the stuff that I have building right now, which is going to take a certain amount of time. Go into any given item, and like it takes these materials, this much credits, and this long. And then there's the joinery to build it. You can see there's no stats on this, but if I look at a weapon, the weapon ones are a little more involved, at least, where Eldor gets 3 damage, Palladium is 2 more damage, and Sun Golds are 1 more damage, and Grays are no more damage. So you can kind of use these to get a tiny amount of stats. This is the system that like maybe feels the most not done of like a lot of things. So you could just change out that joinery and like build multiple of certain weapons and things if you wanted to. There's also a reforging system where you could change the joinery out for a bunch of materials. But like I said, that system feels like very not done. Maybe this is kind of like gonna be like a Forma type system, maybe. But it's pretty odd as it stands right now in like a very unfinished state. With that, as I said, like the dying is just like random and stuff right now. And then this is kind of lore / cartography. So if we look at like this, which I recently grabbed, you see how this name is like not fully done, but this one is fully done. The way that these work is as you visit locations like kind of multiple times, you'll find these lore orbs and like pick them up. And then whenever you finish zones, you get one of those motes, like the mods, as a reward. And that's been kind of interesting because it gives you a reason to go back to areas multiple times, but it's kind of odd also that you can't just finish an area when you go to it for the first time. But because of other systems in the game, it kind of encourages you to keep going back to places. With that, let's jump into like actual gameplay. Also, gotta really drive it home. I really love that you can just kind of go to your Lizette equivalent whenever. Literally anytime you're out of combat, you can just bounce and go grab another item or do what have you. So where I'm standing, I kind of like just like went to one of the dungeon entrances so we can do that. But there's dungeon entrances all over the open world. If we just like look at this, you can see this circle here is where my sparrow is sending me to, but that's like one of the other like harder, longer tile sets. So we're not going to go over there. We're just going to go to a simple one. I am going to be a little over leveled for this, so things are going to definitely look pretty easy. But down here in this well, we have Avocad here as a little merchant selling things and has a little mini game to play. But you head down in here, and then these are randomly generated. This is like kind of like, you know, tile set stuff that we're used to from D, where like you go down in here and then things get generated and is like a certain, you know, layout with different objectives that'll be kind of given to you. So down here, we've got this blue marker here, which I'll show what that is when we get to it. And also we've got our bird, will kind of show us what our progression through the level looks like. Like going down through here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Although I've done this dungeon quite a bit, so I don't really need extra drops and stuff. But just to like show the flow of how these things work, breaking boxes, like getting a bunch of scrap metal from all of these side things, which is really, by the way, the weapon racks. If you are playing this, make sure you pick up the weapon rack stuff because you need scrap metal for everything. Oh, this is a great example room. So this is like one of the larger puzzle rooms that they have, where there's like enemies in here, of course. But the enemies are like maybe like the least important thing in here. Enemies do have like some... How dare you? Enemies do have like some drops. They drop like these little bags, and like these can be some weapon pieces. As you can see there, that's like the basic sword pieces. But by and large, you're going to get way more out of doing environmental stuff. So like breaking this and like grabbing all of the stuff that dropped out of it. I can break that one as well. And like just generally rooting around and exploring is going to be much, much more beneficial than like just killing enemies, unless what you're looking for is like specifically leveling. And there's some tiles that also are kind of like reinforcing that. Lightning for you, sir. You're very low level. Enjoy lightning. But in a room like this, obviously I already know what the like puzzle is here. I'm looking for a different one of these panels. Just here. Go over here. Not this one. Gonna be the last one I check, huh? Yep, this one has a wood paneling. This is where like there's a hidden button. That opens up the doors above me. Pretty sure it opens it up on both sides. I don't remember if the lever is a consistent spawn. Basically, that opens all these up, though. And then there's various chests in here. This can give, like, a bunch of materials, which, oop, there you go. You can see me, like, getting a bunch of materials and stuff there. There'll be different, like, armor pieces, like, pieces of, like, the blueprints for armor and stuff like that. And we have another chest and also the lever I mentioned here. This lever opens up, like, further. Down here, moving this, like, tomb here. Gives us access to another button. And hitting this moves the statues. Which will give us access to the final room. And this is, like, just, like, an example of, like, there's a bunch of rooms like this where it's, like, rewarding exploration. Which seems to be much more of a focus than, like, just looking for every enemy to fight. Obviously, you can see I've got a bunch of these fragments. But, like, getting all these materials is still, like, worthwhile. This is how you get the armor set of a guy we're actually going to encounter in a moment. You can see, like, just tons and tons of materials come from this, as opposed to, like, getting considerably fewer from fighting. So it's much more rewarding to, like, actually explore the environments and, like, even just, like, breaking boxes and stuff. Also, speaking of that guy, you can see this blue mark on our map. That is one of the ancestors. You can see him there if I'm in spirit mode. He's just waltzing around. But grabbing him is how you get... Well, you get the fire sword that I am actually already currently using, but we get to use the powered-up version of it for a while. whenever you grab him in dungeons, and then that'll give you more materials, the pieces to actually build the fire sword, or at least the normal version of it, and all that business as you go through the dungeon. Like it's interestingly like much more of a focus on just like seeing the whole dungeon. Also, we're much, especially with the powered up fire sword, we're much over leveled for these guys. They have like these side rooms to learn and stuff to like grab different pieces of things. I will say one of the things that myself and basically everyone I've talked to about this game has agreed on is that the extra fragments and stuff don't do anything right now. So you can see I have like 28 of the fragment for that helmet. But you can't turn that into anything else as of current. It's probably a thing that will come with time, but it is kind of funny. They have the parries there. Yeah, the powered up fire sword, like, this level is, like, hilarious. Yeah, you do get strict power from having your items leveled up. So, like, I think being almost level 20 for my, my pact, and then having my weapon, I feel like, well, like level 25 or something, is adding, like, a significant amount to the actual power of my character. I've got another one of the, puzzle rooms. Yeah, and these guys are very low level. They're level 2. You still do have to be a little bit careful because they do still hurt. That doesn't really change. Hello. That doesn't really change. They will still do plenty of damage to you, but you can have similarly much damage to deal to them. See here. Went through exploring some of these rooms. Oop, hello there. Yeah, just much over leveled on them. This here. This will raise this up. We get access to this little side room. And because I've explored this before, I know there's a chest here. Yeah. To not spend a lot of time in here, I will just like... We'll just like run on through. There's a whole like back area in there, but you guys don't need to see like all the different things and levels and all that. So we'll just like break on through and kind of show like how these places end. We can just run up here. All weapons can be thrown. This is another room where there's like a puzzle to do. Which is like, as I said, it's kind of the focus. Like the rooms have stuff to do in them or like a unique purpose. We didn't see the room that is kind of like the farming room that spawns infinite dudes. Because that is also a thing, like for leveling weapons, there's some like infinite spawning rooms that are very, very good for leveling. That we got with Big Namora because we got our ghost ancestor picked up and all that good business. And then here is like the exit back out into the open world. So we'll load up out of here. Looks like it's night now. I don't know where we're gonna end up. And don't know where we're gonna end up is like a function of like just how the game works in general, where we are way up north now. And like we started over here-ish, so like we went pretty far in terms of like where that took us to. And then from here, like it just kind of kicks you out here and you can just like root around and do whatever. Like, you know, find more enemies. In a moment, like my sparrow will give me a quest, and if like you just go after the sparrow quest, those have like unique reward drop tables and stuff. The UFO could spawn. I could find like the corrupted stag. Like there's all kinds of different. Actually, I think the corrupted stag has a chance to spawn over here, so I'm gonna head over here anyway. I need his items. But there's all kinds of stuff like that. Oh, the UFO is spawning. Okay, guess we're doing that. Yeah, so like events and stuff can start occurring, as you can see. Just to show it off as we head towards this, we do have to hurry. Because that is a limited time thing. We have to kind of get on it. I'm going to swap really quickly. Whoops. Do this first. Swap this. Virtues. Swap off courage. Go for spirit. Weaponry, go for the bow. Bounce out of here, and then get back in. Yeah, this is like kind of like abducting materials and stuff, and is like a pretty cool fight. I will say I did just swap to like basically max level thing here. Oh, did I miss it? Oh no, we're not done yet. Gotta shoot these down and make sure they don't take these materials. Summon these birds, which is one of the abilities we have here. This is also like I can turn into a butterfly, and you can kind of a free backstab on an enemy. The bow is not just a ranged weapon. It is also... Excuse you. It is also a melee weapon. There is like melee combos with the bow, which is pretty sick. I will say the melee animations are still like definitely on the early side for sure. But it is... Oops, excuse you. It is fun. Bows also don't get their riposte until like very high level. Oops, excuse you. There we go. And then the ult for this is very strong, much stronger than is necessary for these dudes. It's actually so... You're going to see how strong it is in a moment. We have Nimrod here, who really doesn't like our ult, especially not when it's a headshot with a multiplicative damage bonus. So yeah, that's like just one of the events that can just come down. But yeah, like that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at. Like things just are happening. Like my Sparrow gave me another quest while that was going on, I believe. Or maybe not yet. Oh no, that was the Sparrow Tail. The Sparrow Tail was like go over there and do that. Yeah, the Sparrow's like giving you like little like mini additional like here's a little bit of direction type stuff, but you can go wherever you want and do whatever. Head over to like here I could like go and see if I can finish a lore fragment over on this area. At like the seaside village and stuff like that. And it's all pretty cool. I mean, like it's definitely early. It's definitely alpha. I mean, like you can kind of see probably what we're looking at for whenever they actually launch, like just like how big they want the area to be. And like they've said that they're like trying to make things more dense in like this area and stuff, I believe. And like it feels like, you know, it's very promising for where it is. Like I'm having a good time just like rooting around fighting guys and like earning some different pieces of gear and things. It's definitely a thing where it's like, how is this going to be on like the other side of those farms? Like once I have the weapons that I have like 23 extra pieces of this chest piece blueprint and stuff like that. Like what does that convert to? Like what's like the like longer term, what does that look like longer term is definitely like questions to have. But in terms of like what they have for an alpha or pre-alpha or whatever we're calling this, I think is really impressive. Like I think it's very fun. It's definitely rough around the edges, but it's an alpha. It should be rough around the edges in my mind. So I'm having a great time with it. Real curiosity what you guys want to see from me covering it more so in the future, because I'm having a good go of it, and like I want to use the third class and stuff and see how it is. But like I don't know how many of you guys have access to this. They're only letting 2,000 people in like a week right now. So like if you guys just want to see what there is in this in general, that's something I can do. Or if you just want like, you know, larger updates on like the things that they're like changing and like what's being iterated on, that's also cool stuff I can do too. But yeah, for now, that's Soulframe. It's cool. I think they got like a good thing to build off of here.
All right, we're back from TennoCon, and the streamathon is going to continue. But there will, of course, I will try and have there be videos as well as the streamathon at the same time if I can. Also, thank you to the $10 patrons: Athean, Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Benuven, Brutus Salazar, Canalatra, Club World 3, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, Afan, James Harstern, JC4 Science, Josh, Lou Zanth, Malik X Williams, Mark Smith, Mikakel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Tamrielic Wastelander, Tester ZWP, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars, Wowdata1, and Sarah Fear. And of course, all of my other patrons as well. It is incredibly appreciated for all of your support. But yeah, we're gonna try and keep the videos a little bit more regular while the streamathon continues. And of course, we do have a free to play through coming soon.